All right, let's be real for a second. I have been noticing something about myself lately, and well, maybe you can relate. Uh, I've realized that I have a tendency to get complacent. Like, I'll feel like I'm doing fine, or I'll tell myself that I'm on top of things, and then I just slip. Small stuff at first, but it snowballs, and before I know it, I'm deep in what I like to call a spiraling rut. Have you ever been there? Have you ever, you've started off small, maybe you skip one day of actually doing something productive, or you let yourself scroll for a little bit too long, or you tell yourself that, I'll just chill for now, I deserve it, and that's fine, right? Everyone deserves a break, but for me, and probably for a lot of other people, that little break doesn't really stay that little. It sets off this whole chain reaction. Now, one slip leads to another. Before long, the next thing that I know, I am days behind, stressed and just anxious, frustrated with myself, and the spiral will feed itself over and over again. And well, the part that most people don't really realize is that most people don't even realize that they're doing it. They think, oh, I'm just tired today, I'll get back on it tomorrow, but that tomorrow doesn't really come, and at least not in the way that you'd hope. But that one little slip up turns into multiple slip ups, and then the excuses start piling up, then your discipline, your energy, your momentum, it is all gone. And the one insight that I've been sitting on lately is that complacency is the root. It's not that you're lazy or that you don't really care, it's that you get comfortable, and you stop pushing yourself at the micro level, and your brain, being the clever little thing that it is, rewards you for staying comfortable. It's biologically wired to conserve energy. It's, dopamine spikes for small, easy pleasures. And your brain says, yeah, let's stick to that. This is safe. This is easy. Meanwhile, your bigger goals, your bigger self, it's all just kind of sitting there waiting for you to act. Think about it like this. Life isn't a straight linear line. It's a constant series of, tiny choices. And the moment you start to get complacent on just one of those choices, you give the spiral a chance to actually start. And it's why some people hit success and then plateau, or even just come crashing down, or start off strong in a habit, then slowly fall off. It's, the spiral will start small, but it's insidious because it builds on itself. Now, actually, I do want to be clear here. Acknowledging the spiral isn't the same really as beating yourself up about it. Right. The first step is seeing it, just recognizing objectively, like, oh shit, I've been here before. This is the pattern. And once that recognition sets in, it is powerful, because once you know the snowball exists, you can actually step in and stop it before it gets out of hand. And you can essentially intercept the spiral rut. So how do you do it? How would you stop letting complacency snowball into a rut? Well, what I've done first is manage micro discipline wins. You don't need a massive life overhaul, to break a spiral. You don't need some crazy wake-up call. You just need one tiny action. Make your bed. Write down one thing that you're going to do today and actually do it. Right? It can be the smallest thing, but just do it. Lift for even 5 minutes. Read one page. Just do the smallest step. Small wins create momentum. Bro, you see one tiny success and your brain gets that tiny dopamine hit for doing the right thing, not just scrolling or procrastinating. Mindfulness is also super important here for at least awareness of the pattern itself. Journaling, self-reflection, whatever it is for you, meditating even. I've been doing this for a while, and let me tell you, when you can literally track how your complacency leads to a spiral, you can predict it. You know your triggers. You know the moments when you're more likely to let yourself slip. And once you know those triggers, you can act before the rut will take over. Plus, and your environment matters a lot more than you think. I've noticed that the spiral usually will speed up once my environment actually enables it. If I'm in a space where distractions are easy, where I don't really have clear boundaries, where there's no structure, the rut will grow. But if you create structure, even microstructure, and some rigidity, you cut off the spiral before it even gains any traction. And here's a big one. Don't expect perfection. The spiral rut isn't a moral failing of any sort. It's just a natural consequence of your own psychology. It's easy to blame yourself, get frustrated, and fall even further into the spiral just from the guilt alone. I mean, I've been there, bro. We all have. But you beat yourself up over one slip up, and that's it. Your momentum is shot. The key is detachment. You see the slip, acknowledge it, and then just take the next correct action immediately. Don't waste energy on regret. Don't waste energy on thinking what the next thing I should do is. You know what the next thing you should do is, so do it. Right? The spiral only keeps going if you fuel it with emotional energy. Emotion beats logic every time. If you're consistent, not perfect, but consistent, you build a resistance to spirals. The snowball tries to roll, but you end up stopping it before it gains speed. That's what that does. That's why routines are underrated as fuck. A solid daily routine, micro goals, structured time blocks, a whole timetable, all of that shit makes complacency even harder to slip into. You can't stop life, from throwing temptations, distractions, and laziness at you, but at least you can control how you respond to it. And that control is what stops ruts from forming in the first place. So yeah, I realized something today. I fall into spiral ruts because I get complacent. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there because it's true. Right? And I can't just hope for motivation to pull me out because obviously, as I've said before, motivation is unreliable and it's a liar. It comes and goes. What I can do, though, is build systems. Structure my environment, get micro wins, track my own patterns, and practice detachment. That is the only way to consistently break out of a rut before it actually grows. Listen, if you're actually listening, I want you to check yourself. Where are you letting yourself get comfortable? Where is what's the snowball that you're ignoring right now? Because you can stop before it rolls all the way downhill. You don't need to wait until it's massive and unmanageable and crushes your energy. Because if you can intervene now, small action today will prevent weeks of frustration tomorrow. And the last thing I'll say before I go, I guess, is the spiral rut isn't the enemy here. It's complacency. And recognizing that pattern in yourself, realizing that the snowball exists, is the first step to mastering it. Micro discipline, awareness, environment, and detachment, all these little things, those are your tools. Use them, and next time when you do find yourself slipping or some shit like that, when you feel the first signs of the spiral, just remind yourself that you can break it before it grows. It's simple. All right. And it works. You just have to start.